Hi, since this is the first time that Owatonna Public Schools will be taking the MCA math test online, I thought it might be helpful just to highlight some of the features and some of the things that you'll see as students take the online practice test, the samplers, and the real test. So let's start up here in the upper left-hand corner. Again, up here, this is just going to identify which test the student is on. So I've opened up a grade 5 MCA item sampler. You can see that this item sampler has 32 questions on it. I should let you know that these item samplers are static, unlike the test, which will generate different questions. The item samplers are going to have the same 32 questions. So if a student does it once or does it 14 times, they're going to see the same questions over and over again. The item sampler will not identify if the student got it right or wrong, and it will not provide a printout at the end, unlike last year's online item samplers. So I think from the state, the main focus is that this gives students an opportunity to play with the technology a little bit and see what the format looks like for the testing cycle. If we move to the bottom, we can start to see some of the tools down here. There's 4 buttons down here with the 5th grade item sampler. These two, the zoom in, zoom out, allows students to make the text on the page bigger. And it makes all the buttons bigger, which is nice if students, want to be able to see things a little more clearly. They can zoom out to make it smaller. You can see that they have access to a calculator. Unlike the paper and pencil test, the calculator is not designated for only certain sections. If a problem allows students to use a calculator, the calculator will be available. All they have to do is simply put their cursor on it and left click on it, and the calculator pops up. The calculators that students see are a little different, so as students get older in 8th grade, the calculator is going to look a little different than the one in 3rd grade, so on and so forth. But it's a fairly basic calculator, and they'll have access to them. If students are not able to use a calculator, it won't be up at that time. Also, starting in, I believe, 5th grade, they do have access to formula sheets as well. So those will be down there, again, as students progress through the upper grades into 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and when the MCA 3 starts in 11th grade, the formula sheets will look different. Students will have to know what these formulas stand for. So you see that 5th grade has 2 of them, A equals B times H, and A equals 1/2 B times H. Students will have to recognize that this formula is for the area of a parallelogram, and that this formula is the area of a triangle. They will have all the letters what they mean, but it does not tell them specifically which formula and figure it matches with. So students will have to be able to identify that. Again, I can close that. Now, some of the online tools specifically that students can use when answering questions. The first one is that each student will have the ability to have the question read to them. So if I put my cursor in the box and I right click it, you'll see I have 3 choices. I will talk about mark for review in a second, but for some reason the state has not activated the speak question or speak question and options on these online samplers. But what would happen is I would put my cursor over the speak question, it would light up, and I could click on that, and the computer would read the question for me. Some students will have a modification that will allow them to have the question and the options read to them. If they have that, they could put their cursor on this option and it would light up and read everything for them. But each student will have the ability to have the question read to them. So I think a very important test taking strategy would be to encourage and teach students to listen to the question multiple times before they try to answer it. Mark for review will designate this question as something that I want to take a look at later. So if I wasn't 100% sure that I did it right, or I was confused about something and I answered it but I want to look at it later, I can simply check this box, and before I leave this section and move on to the next section on the computer-based test, it will remind me that I have a question that's marked. I will also see up here, past marked questions, that it shows me that I have 1 question mark. I open this, it tells me that I have question 1, so I can go back to that one. So it's a good way if kids want to remind themselves to go back and check things. You can also see that I have the ability to mark a question up here as well, this little flag with my cursor on it. Right now it's checked, which means that I've identified it as something I want to go back and check. I can uncheck that. So again, now you can see I don't have any questions marked. And I'm going to leave this one marked, so I'm going to click it again. Another important tool and a good test-taking strategy is to identify important words. So as I read this, Jan has 50 pieces of paper. She prints as many copies as possible of a 16-page report. How many pieces of paper are left? For me, this whole idea of pieces of paper are left, I want to know how many are left, which is really asking me for the remainder. If I put my cursor on it, left click and highlight that phrase, I can now right click on it and I can highlight that selection. So now I've highlighted that important piece of information for me, and it tells me that, I have to find how many pieces of paper are left. Not how many reports I can do, but how many pieces of paper are left. And then when it comes time to answer a question, students can simply select an answer and it'll darken, and right now answer 9 is my selection. I can change it. It won't allow me to answer more than one answer. I can, if I want to, get rid of an answer so it doesn't distract me anymore. If I put my cursor on that option D, and I right click, it will allow me to strike through. So now I can strike out that answer so I know I don't have to look at it anymore. So now I've narrowed my choices down to 3 answers. And if I try to answer that, it is going to allow me to do that, but I want to make sure I stay away from the one that I did. So we have to make sure that students understand if I strike through that, don't answer that. So now once I finish that question, I simply go down to the lower right-hand corner and I hit next. And now next is going to take me to the next question. So again, I have the same options to go through here. I can put my cursor in the box, right click. I would like this to speak to me, but again, it doesn't highlight it. But this is where I would do that if I wanted to have this question read to me. This is a fill in the box, so kids are actually going to have to type in their answer. So it says, there's 852 adult tickets, da 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 da. So if I thought my answer was like 528, I would use the keypad to type that in. If I don't like it, I can delete it out. I can use the number keypad on my keyboard, which is what I'm doing right now, and I can delete that. Again, I do have the choice if I want to mark this for review. I do have my formula sheets down here. I can zoom in, zoom out. So kids aren't just going to have multiple questions. They are going to have to do some other types of technology. So I'm going to just move on to the next question. So again, I go back here. Click that. You must answer the question before me. So it's going to force me to answer this question. So I'm just going to put 12 in to keep moving. Hit next. Again, Lydia used 1/5 of their notebook paper. What decimal amount has she used? So you can go through again and answer that. If this is one that I want to review, I can click review again. If I look up here, I can see that I have gone through 3 questions and 2 of them are marked. I can go back and remind myself that I have 1 marked that I can go back and check later as I go through it. I can hit next. So I can keep moving through as I go through that. If I want, I can go back through these questions as I go through it. So I think those are the main tools that we really want to make sure our students understand. Again, how to have it read for them, right click, speak the question, how to highlight. So click and drag to highlight that, and then right click, highlight that selection. Be able to strike through, right click on that, hit strike through. Remind them where their formula sheet is and where their calculator is. So I hope this gives you a little bit of an idea of some of the technology tools that are available for students and things that we should get them comfortable with. Thanks.